Hello friends, Jennifer Pearson here, Thistle Gypsy, doing another tarot tag, and I'm going to have to ask forgiveness on this one because I cannot remember, and I don't have it anywhere around here, the name of the person who started this tag. And he started it in April or March, I'm not sure. One of those times when tarot tags were really going around. And so I'm coming to it late. And I know that Benjamin is part of his name. I can't remember the other part, so I apologize. But it was an interesting tag, and it brings up some interesting ideas, and I think most people kind of agree, but I felt like throwing in my 2 cents worth. Part of the reason, hang on, I need to check something. Yep, it's just the neighbors in their truck. Just want to make sure there's nobody pulling in my driveway. So first of all, because I'm in the American South, I have to say it's not evil. It's not evil. I don't feel like I'm tapping into occult energies. I love the pagan community on YouTube who fosters a lot of this tarot conversation. I love you all. You're just so wonderful and so generous, and your enthusiasm just comes through in all kinds of things. But I wouldn't call myself a pagan. And, I don't have any particular ritual or religious or spiritual practices per se. And so I guess I get to bypass that a little bit. But what I find here, I'm originally from Michigan. I've lived in California and Montana and hither and thither, and now I'm in the American South. And what seems to, in most of my life, I would have defined myself as an atheist. And I guess if you pressed me, I think I would still say I'm an atheist. But you'll see as I talk here that it's not quite the atheism that most people would assume. Most atheists would probably not call me an atheist at this point. But what I found here in the South, when I connected, it's so hard to find anybody who isn't rigidly religious, that I looked, I thought, I have to be able to have a normal conversation with somebody without feeling like I might offend them. And so I looked for atheist groups, and what I found in some of the atheist groups is a very hostile attitude toward religion. And my attitude is, we have freedom of religion in the United States. You are free to believe what you want to believe. But some folks have had such negative self-esteem shredding kinds of experiences religiously here, that as they broke away from that, and all of the hostility that came from them breaking away and how people treated them when they broke away, is that they are not, I would say, not merely atheist, they are actively anti-religious, have a very hostile attitude toward religion. Now, I'm not going to judge that because I didn't have their experiences, so, but often I seem to see is that some people, when they make that breakaway, and I'm not talking about the atheists here, but other people who seem to be thinking that, if you're not in a rigid standard belief system, religion, established, acceptable religion, then you've somehow swung way over to the other side into what they will call devil worship. They don't have any category for people who don't believe in devils, into, some other, so they still have to categorize it according to that belief structure. And so they kind of go from the church and then they swing to this other thing that this, kind of dark occult practices, and they consider, because it's forbidden, they consider tarot and that sort of thing part of the occult, dark, tapping into evil forces or something like that kind of practice. I really don't know. It's out there for me. But I know from one encounter, maybe more than one really, that there are people who just deeply associate tarot with going to the other side. So, I was raised without religion, so I don't have any other side to go to. I don't have. So, I read cards. That's what I do. Okay. So there's that. I don't believe it's evil. I think you can be an atheist and read cards, and doesn't have to be, spiritual or whatever. As many people have said, a lot of what you're doing when you're reading cards is I wouldn't say free associating, because you do have the card, but you're allowing that card to bring up associations within the context of a question that you have, or you're looking into the future, and and the funny thing is that a lot of people here think that are trying to be a prophet or something. I'm accurate into about 6 months, and then it falls off pretty drastically, maybe 9 months, but and it's very general messages. So it's like, hey, if you plan to go to college next year, then you're planning, you're projecting, you're doing all of these things, and that's not against your religion. So why is receiving messages in the cards against your religion? I don't get it. So I don't know where I was going with that. But so the association. So on the surface of it, what you're doing, especially if you're reading for yourself, it's easy to just say, all right, well, I'm free associating. I'm considering my question or my situation from a new angle based on the cards that come up. And you might think, I don't think of that card as having any more weight than, the opinion of a friend over here, or what I was thinking before that. It's nudging me to consider another perspective. So that's one way to look at that. And I think it's an extremely valid way to look at it. I think it's a healthy way to look at it. And I think that whatever comes within a reading, or if you are having somebody read from you, I think that that's a good grounding perspective. It's a good grounding perspective. To remember that the power of decision still resides in you, and that any tarot reading, these cards to me are an imperfect medium for communication. A recent, and this was not tarot, it was actually Lenormand, but I was in a fender bender, and the Lenormand cards that came up for that, which I didn't realize at the time, imperfect medium of communication, or I would have been more careful, was that it was the scythe, cutting action with the coffin, which is a box, and thus could represent a car. And that's what somebody's cutting into my box, my traveling box. So yes, it's an imperfect. So I saw that before I went out, but there was just no way I was getting beware of possible auto accidents out of that pair of cards. Well, I was seeing other indications for that day, like the man was in the tower was in the man, or both. And gosh, I'm going to deal with somebody in official capacity. I hadn't planned on that. I wonder what that is. Anyway, so yeah. Imperfect means of communication. Still a worthwhile means of communication, but imperfect. And we need to remember that and keep our perspective in that regard. And that's why reading the cards over longer and longer periods, the more experience we have with it, reading for ourselves regularly, I kind of look for excuses to read for myself, simply because I am going to know what happens to me. And so I will see how the cards are expressing the things that are happening to me. With clients, they get the reading, and they might come back and tell you about things, but a lot of times they don't. So, and it doesn't mean that things didn't happen as you predicted, or that the information wasn't useful to them. They just have busy lives and they move on. I've heard from other people who knew somebody that I had read for, and they'd had a conversation with that person, and said that that did happen, and I wasn't expecting it, even though it was in the reading, it wasn't, so yeah, we're learning. It's one of the great things about card reading. Love learning the cards and the continual learning process about it. Okay, so some people had said, well, no, I'm not going to go into that quite yet. I'll do that maybe last. Okay, so we're talking about reading for yourself, looking at just the images on the card and taking them as something, as an association in your perspective on a situation. When I've read for myself for all those years, reading for myself in various ways, usually with oracle decks rather than tarot, so this goes beyond tarot. I guess there is an aspect, even so, especially when I feel like I'm getting a corrective message, like it's saying, and I do feel like, and that's where I started to get, instead of it just being associations, just being a perspective, I began to feel, and even look for to some extent, but to feel like I was getting a message, that it wasn't just me and the cards, that there was something, helping. And that's why when I talked to, I actually had a conversation with a coworker who's a Jehovah's Witness, and she has been very respectful, and I'm very respectful of her views. But she came to me the other day, and in their publication that goes out, they had something on the occult and tarot cards in particular, which they of course associate with the occult. And so she gave that to me, and she said, "No, just read it." And she asked me to, and I said, "I don't have any problem with that. I feel like I need to kind of understand this other perspective, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me." Anyway, so I did, and we didn't have any conversation based on it, because she came to me and she said, "So did you read that?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I did." And I just said, "I think we disagree on so many points that there's, we could have an hour-long conversation if you want to, but I don't think it's going to change either of our perspectives." But during that, I did tell her, I said, "Now I know there are people who think that you're tapping into something evil," and I said, "I don't feel like I'm tapping into anything evil, and I don't see why that would be an assumption. I don't see why the assumption wouldn't be, if you believe in a God, that this isn't it's very similar to prayer. I have an issue, I have a question, communicate on, give me a sign, whatever the case may be, to understand what's going on in my life, which is normally why you go. Everybody assumes that it's projecting way out into the future, and most of the time it's not. It's like, what is going on with my life now, so I can make a decision now, is usually how people who use tarot on a regular basis are using it. So I felt like I had to clarify to her that I feel like whatever I'm tapping into is good. It is not harmful. It's not evil. I'm not reaching out to evilness in order to do this work. But at this point, and this is where I think I cease to be a pure atheist, is that I do feel that there is a guiding, something is guiding the cards to show up, sometimes as you're reading again, you get associations that maybe wouldn't normally come to you. And like I said, a lot of times if you feel like you're getting a corrective, it's like, Jennifer, you're going about it all wrong, or this is what you need to do, or you need to face the fact. And sometimes you feel like you're getting those direct messages, like, bam. That to me, it feels like it's beyond just my associations with the cards. It feels like something else. And so, and this became, I think, more solidly true for me when I decided to read for others. For most of my life, I only read for myself, occasionally for my sister, and that's pretty much it. And so when I started to do this, I was doing it online, and it was totally like, I was a whim. It was like, well, let's see if I can do it. I don't know. And certainly where I'm at, there was no way I was going to get practice here. And so I was part of the Biddy Tarot community of free readers, and the vast majority of the people who came through that system were like in Australia and India and New Zealand, and they're way far away. And yet I was able to give them accurate readings, because part of their agreements for that free reading is that they will give feedback. And so, and the vast majority, there might have been very few that did not give me feedback, but most of them gave me feedback, and it was positive feedback. And so that really raised the question, well, how on earth am I connecting with these people way over there? This is my science mind going, how am I doing this? How is this possible? How could this even work? It's essentially my fool energy that said, why not give it a try? Jump off the cliff. And then there's the consequences of jumping off the cliff are, how is this working? I just kept doing it because things were, you're busy and things just keep coming. But that, even if I'm connecting with this person's energy, there is that. If I'm connecting with this person's energy, and so that I can accurately kind of reflect, in the cards I'm reflecting their situation by connecting with them. But there is the next question of, if I am giving them a message, not just reflecting their situation, but I'm giving them a message, where is the message coming from? Where is the message coming from? So, again, I believe that they're, source, some people believe they have particular guiding spirits or energies or whatever. I'm not going to judge. I don't know. Big question. I don't know. But I feel like there is a receiving of a message within the cards. through the imperfect medium of the cards that you're using. And as readers, we do our best to relay, to read that message and relay it to the client in a way that they can understand. And that's what we're doing. And again, I don't know that I would have had that feeling if I hadn't had that experience of long distance reading where I was getting feedback that I was very accurate and feeling like, again, I was getting messages that I would not, for myself, I would not have invented. I would not have. So, all right. I hope this doesn't affect you too much. I hear the neighbor revving up his lawnmower. I don't have too much more to say anyway. So the last thing is, some people were saying, you know, what are tarot cards? You know, they're just images on paper. Now, or oracle cards for that matter. And I would say they might be more than that, but, you know, if you were to and everybody says, you know, they're a tool. Yes, they are a tool. I guess my inclination is to say this. They are simply images on paper or cardstock until they reach the reader and the reader begins to work with them. And I think different people have different connections with decks, and if you're a reader, you know this. Okay, you know this. All right. If they're just images on paper, why does that matter? Why does that matter? Now, we will say this. You know, if you get the classic Rider-Waite-Smith and that's your deck, you know, that set of images is going to, on cardstock, is going to work for you. All right? So that's how you're receiving, that's a good way for you to receive messages. And if the one you have, you know, wears out, you know, has gotten so soft that it's, or whatever, that you don't want to use it anymore, you can get another one, another set of images on cardstock, and it will be okay for you, and it'll work for you. So it isn't necessarily that specific set, all right, but it is the images somehow that carry something. And where, as a reader, and the distinctions are so interesting between different readers. You know, decks that resonate with some people and don't with others. And like there are decks that I can read intuitively, and there's others, you know, no, I'm thinking oracles, you need to read from a guidebook. And there are things like the Fairies Oracle where, you know, I feel like I'm talking to a being. I feel like those images are, and I treated that deck special when I got it. I made offerings to the fairies. I felt like I needed to make them feel at home and make them feel like they were welcome, you know. So other decks, you know, I just Rider-Waite-Smith, you know, that's a workaday deck. I don't feel like it's carrying personality energies specifically. But yeah, there are issues of resonating with a deck, which is a set of images, but you're resonating with them now, and they work particularly well for you, or they don't work for you, as a tool, as this imperfect method of communication. And I do. I think there's more to it, and I don't know that if it's, as a reader, you end up investing your energy, so you sort of imprint something on the deck or something. I don't know, but I think that there is, again, for those who believe in their guides or spirit helpers, maybe it's a matter of a combination. You're attracted to the art, but you get the deck, and whoever is trying to communicate through it gets blocked or doesn't feel like it's possible, and so eventually you kind of go, this deck doesn't work for me, or it's just not. And I've had that. I've had decks that had beautiful images, and of course I've got the decks with a beautiful image. I'm an image addict. And but I do let them go if they don't really latch on to me as a reading tool. That's my practical aspect. If I'm not picking that deck up, or I don't miss that deck when I'm not using it, then I need to let it go. And again, think about the language I just used there. If it's just images on paper, why do I miss it? Why do you miss using a deck? Why do you miss that deck if it's just images on paper? According to science, it's just images on paper. I will agree with you completely. But that's not where we're at right now, is it? That's not where we're talking about right now. Yeah, and I do. I think that there are other things going on. Do I think, as far as science is concerned, do I think science will someday make some headway into understanding? I hope so. I hope so. Especially this whole thing of why I would have any accuracy whatsoever reading for somebody across the globe. All right, I would love it if somebody would explain that to me. So other people who've answered this have kind of said, "Oh, I love the mystery." It's like, I can take or leave the mystery. I would be happy to know. Yeah, let me know. But I don't, because it is so difficult to substantiate. I don't think in my lifetime, surely. And I don't even think probably among the people who are young, I don't think it will ever be. Because I don't think we have the mindset or the tools or whatever to figure out a way to satisfy science, the hard evidence-based aspect of science, with what we're doing with tarot reading and this ability to somehow read for people who aren't even here, aren't even with you at this time. Yeah. Have I come to an end? I think I've come to an end. Alright, I think that's what I believe in tarot. Ask me again. That's how I believe in tarot, what I believe in tarot. A year from now, well, I don't know about a year from now if it'll be any different. Maybe 5 years from now it'll be a little different. But anyway, thank you for stopping by, listening, liking, sharing, and subscribing. I hope you found this interesting, and I definitely encourage other people who are readers to participate in this. I believe in tarot. What do you think? I mean, what do you think in particular? What I brought up about the connection to a deck. There's all kinds of things to consider here, so feel free to participate. # I believe in tarot. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.